Looking back, it's wild how quickly everything fell apart with Daniel. I'm Olivia, 32, and as I sit here in my old bedroom at my parents' house in Dallas, I can't help but laugh bitterly. Not out of happiness, but at the sheer irony of it all. Life had turned out so differently than I had planned. I met Daniel at my friend Rachel's housewarming party. She had just bought this beautiful little townhouse, the kind of place I had always dreamed of owning. Walking in, I felt a pang of envy, not just for the house, but for Rachel's seemingly perfect life. She had it all. Her dream job, a fiancé who adored her, and now this picture-perfect home. Meanwhile, I was single, exhausted from dating apps, and convinced I'd never find the one. And then I met Daniel. Tall, dark-haired, and effortlessly confident. He had a presence that made him stand out in a crowd. But what captivated me most wasn't his looks. It was the way he listened, really listened. That night, we talked for hours, and by the time I left, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, I had finally met someone who wouldn't end in disappointment. And for a while, that's exactly what he was. Before I go on, if you love hearing real-life stories about love, regret, and the moments that change everything, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Because sometimes, the biggest lessons in life come from the mistakes we never saw coming. Now, let me tell you how I ruined the best thing I ever had. Daniel was good to me. Too good, if I'm being honest. He was the kind of man who always showed up, both physically and emotionally. He made me feel safe, loved, and secure in a way no one ever had before. Our relationship moved fast, but it never felt rushed. Within a year, we were engaged. By the next, we were married. It was everything I had once dreamed of. And that was the problem. It was too easy, too predictable, too stable. Somewhere along the way, I started mistaking his kindness for weakness, his patience for complacency. He wasn't the kind of guy who made grand, sweeping romantic gestures, who surprised me with last-minute weekend getaways, or who made my heart race with uncertainty. He was steady, reliable, the kind of man who sent me flowers just because and remembered exactly how I liked my coffee. And I resented him for it. At first, it was little things. I'd tease him for being too nice, roll my eyes when he double-checked if I needed anything from the store, laugh with my friends about how he planned everything down to the last detail. They joked that he was more of a husband type than a boyfriend type, and I let them. Because deep down, I had started wondering if I had settled, if I had chosen comfort over passion, security over excitement. That seed of doubt grew, slowly at first, then all at once. The night everything fell apart, we were at a dinner party with friends. It was casual, just a group of us drinking wine, swapping stories. Someone brought up relationships, questioning whether love was fate or just timing. And without thinking, without realizing the weight of my words, I laughed and said, honestly, if I could do it all over again, I probably wouldn't have married Daniel. The second the words left my mouth, I knew I had messed up. The room went silent, the kind of thick, uncomfortable silence that makes your stomach drop. And then I looked at Daniel. His face was blank, his grip tightening around his wine glass. Wow, he said finally, his voice quiet but sharp. Good to know. I scrambled to fix it, to backtrack, to explain that it wasn't what I meant, but the damage was done. The look in his eyes was different. Not angry, not hurt, just empty. And that terrified me. That night, he didn't yell. He didn't argue. He just went to bed without saying another word. I told myself we'd talk in the morning, that he'd shake it off like he always did. But when I woke up, he was gone. His closet was half empty. His toothbrush was missing. And on the nightstand, next to a framed photo from our honeymoon, was his wedding ring. I stared at it, my mind struggling to catch up with what my heart already knew. He wasn't coming back. I called. No answer. I texted. Nothing. I told myself he just needed space, that he'd cool off and we'd figure things out. But a week passed, then another, then a month, and slowly, painfully, I realized this wasn't a fight. This was the end. The worst part, he didn't just leave, he moved on. While I was still in shock, still trying to process what had happened, Daniel was rebuilding his life. And then one day, I saw it for myself. I was walking through downtown when I spotted him at an outdoor cafe, laughing. Across from him sat a woman who was everything I wasn't. Effortlessly beautiful, confident, self-assured. And the way he looked at her, like she was the only woman in the world, it was the way he used to look at me. I wanted to march over, to say something, to remind him that we had history, that we had built a life together. But I didn't, because deep down I knew. I had lost him, and worse, I had never really deserved him. Regret is a slow poison. It doesn't hit you all at once. It creeps in, piece by piece, until one day you wake up and realize you ruined your own life. That you had something incredible and let it slip through your fingers because you were too blind to see it for what it was. Daniel didn't leave because he stopped loving me. He left because he finally realized I would never love him the way he deserved. And now he's making another woman happy. While I sit here in my old bedroom at my parents' house, wondering how I let everything fall apart. They say you don't know what you have until it's gone. But the truth? Sometimes you do know. You just never think you'll actually lose it. And by the time you do, it's already too late. If the story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about love, regret, and the mistakes that change everything. Because sometimes the greatest heartbreak isn't being left behind. It's knowing you did it to yourself.